recent reboot trilogy of the Tomb Raider franchise closed off with Shadow of the Tomb Raider. The interesting thing about this one is that Eidos Montreal took the lead while Crystal Dynamics took a back seat supporting them, unlike the other games. As a result, we have a Tomb Raider game that's slightly more focused on puzzles and platforming rather than mass murdering. It's got more challenge tombs and Lara looks more buff, still no polygon boobs though, and there's plenty of side quests and more lifeless animations than anything Bethesda could ever dream of. But the sales of this title is 70% less than the one in 2013 that started it all. It had massive potential with its new customizable difficulty setting, 3 huge hub worlds, and a decent story to boot. So what went wrong? People didn't give a shit about Lara, I guess? The previous entries were clearly inspired by the Uncharted series, which brought this cinematic blockbuster action to life with slick cutscenes, set pieces, and simplistic platforming with pseudo-puzzles splintered throughout. Tomb Raider essentially lifted all of this and made a few tweaks to fit Lara's adventure, but what all of these games missed is the sense of exploration and solving actual puzzles. Shadow has all of these elements of exploration with its tombs, but it holds your hand with giant text telling you what to do and how you could do it. It's a mixed world of freedom yet constraints. To really feel like you're in an open world and have a semi-open world game, we can look to many other games that do that. Games that make you feel like an assassin through careful, methodical play, like Hitman. Or games where you gradually gain abilities and immerse yourself into the lore, like Dishonored. Considering how Tomb Raider is about discovering a long-lost city and its inhabitants, it would be awesome to have made it to a Metroidvania like Hollow Knight. But the crazy thing is, it already feels like one, but one that's condescending AF. Shadow is quite linear with most of its story beats, but it does open up in the first hub world, but it's desperate to tell you what is needed to act as a sealed off section. Hollow Knight lets you explore its world and discover abilities or lore and side quests on your own. Tomb Raider doesn't really work like that. Challenge tombs, set pieces, combat, side missions are all sort of hinted at with text and Lara constantly thinking out loud how she could do it.
Who left those carvings of the heron in the eclipse? I have to talk to Unaratu about them.
The Uncharted series commits to a linear action game to control the pace, and it goes for blockbuster action movie type game rather than an action adventure exploration game. Anyway, Hollow Knight takes advantage of its world by having areas that are interconnected and have multiple parts that loop around or have unlockable shortcuts. This makes you feel like you're actually exploring and finding out the lost city layout by yourself. Each ability you gain adds to both platforming and combat in a meaningful way, like how you can use double jump in tough platforming sections and in combat. The downward swipe lets you pogo off an enemy as well as get ahead in platforming. Side quests in Hollow Knight are found through your own curiosity and volition, and not by appearing green or having green circles marked for you. Cinematic set pieces in a game like Hollow Knight is purely based on gameplay, like when you pull off an incredibly tough platforming challenge that also combines combat with abilities you've gained so far. Shadow of the Tomb Raider also has set pieces, which has tons of debris, impressive graphics, but hardly uses all of its game mechanics to feel like you actually did it yourself. Side missions are usually rescuing people or fetch quests that take place within the hub worlds and feel disjointed and disconnected with each other, which, while fantastically designed in linear spaces, they overall feel like a game rather than an actual lost city. Platforming mechanics is quite simple and heavily automated, where Lara magnetically latches onto a ledge or a tree, which is most of the game, so the player's just going to go through the motions rather than having to time a jump or manage a stamina bar. We've seen that in games like Shadow of the Colossus and Breath of the Wild. It does take advantage of the level design with new stealth mechanics like smearing Lara with mud and hiding in actual thick bushes that are hard to see. This way it adds some tension to combat, like taking out a few enemies and then getting caught halfway through. To be fair, it's not a 2D game with art design, but a 3D game with detailed world. While we can mask loading screens, it's really hard to build a hub world that interconnects and loops around itself. The one place that Shadow does succeed is the challenge tombs, where it combines platforming and combat sometimes, but also makes you solve some nifty puzzles. These feel like natural extensions of the level they're in, but Hollow Knight did it better, where you have to remember things in your head if you want to go back and explore, not the game telling you probably should. But almost most of your way through the game, you'd find yourself using Lara's survival vision to navigate and find objectives, which brings us to Customizable Difficulty. Now, you can change the game's difficulty depending what you find appealing, like combat, puzzles, platforming, which changes the way the game works. But sadly, the game itself isn't built around the idea of you wanting to explore Paititi on your own. It had the opportunity to be a first AAA Metroidvania game that honors the genre, which isn't something new for the franchise, like the brilliant Lara Croft Go, which is a turn-based puzzler that has the spirit of the Tomb Raider franchise and has a cool spin on its genre. Well, here's me hoping that one day Squeenie will make a Metroidvania game. Thanks for watching. Let me know which Tomb Raider game that you enjoyed the most. Shado wasn't as bad because it wasn't focused on combat, which is the least enjoyable part in the new trilogy. Subscribe for more Players Narrative. Ciao.